The weekly Wilson family dinner had followed the same script for 3 years. My brother James showing off his latest luxury purchase, my sister-in-law Rachel dropping hints about their Hamptons vacation home, and my parents beaming with pride at their successful son while casting concerned glances at their struggling daughter. I picked at my pot roast, letting their voices wash over me as they discussed James's newest Porsche. "You should come see it, Sarah," James said with that familiar condescending smile. "I'd offer to take you for a ride, but..." He gestured at my simple clothes, leaving the insult unspoken. "Thanks, but I have meetings with some property managers tomorrow," I replied. Rachel's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. "Still managing that little apartment building downtown?" They only knew. That little apartment building had been my first purchase, bought with every penny I'd saved from 5 years of living frugally while working in real estate. What my family didn't know was that it was just the beginning. "Something like that," I murmured, taking a sip of water. "Honey," Mom leaned forward with worried eyes, "you know we're concerned. Everyone else your age is buying houses, settling down. Even your cousin Emily just bought that lovely 3-bedroom in Oak Park." "Can't even afford a house," James chuckled, cutting into his roast. "Maybe if you'd stuck with corporate law like Dad suggested instead of playing around in real estate." I glanced out the dining room window at the for sale sign being planted on the neighbor's lawn. The same sign that would soon appear on every house on this block. My block. "Actually," I said quietly, "about that." But James was already talking over me, regaling our parents with stories about his latest court victory. Dad nodded approvingly while Mom refreshed everyone's wine glasses. My phone buzzed, a text from my property manager. "All paperwork finalized. Ready to proceed with phase 2. I smiled, typing back a quick, "Yes." "Sarah, are you even listening?" James's annoyed voice cut through my thoughts. "I was saying you could probably rent a decent place if you just let Dad help you out." "I'm fine, James." "Fine." Rachel scoffed. "You live in that tiny apartment above your building. That's not fine, that's strategic," I finished for her. Living on-site helped me understand the rental market better. Dad set down his fork. "Sarah, we're worried about you. All this time in real estate, and what do you have to show for it? Your brother owns 3 houses. 4, James corrected smugly. Just closed on a lake house." I stood up, walking to the window. The realtor was finishing up outside, adjusting the for sale sign that would start tomorrow's chain of events. "Want to know something interesting about this neighborhood?" I asked, turning back to my family. "Property values have increased 40% in the last 2 years. But most people don't know that because the sales have been private, through an LLC called Aurora Properties." James rolled his eyes. "And we care about this, why?" "Because," I said, pulling out my laptop, "Aurora Properties is my company. And as of this morning, it owns every house on this block except this one." I nodded toward our family home. "And Mrs. Peterson next door just accepted my offer on her house." The silence that followed was deafening. James's fork clattered against his plate. "What?" Mom whispered. I opened my laptop, turning it to show them Aurora Properties' portfolio. Apartment buildings, commercial spaces, and entire residential blocks across the city. "That little apartment building was just the beginning," I said softly. "While you were all feeling sorry for me, I was building an empire. One property at a time." Dad's face had gone pale. "How many properties?" "Currently, 212. With another 40 under contract." Rachel's wine glass froze halfway to her mouth. But that would mean that your poor sister-in-law is one of the largest property owners in the city?" I smiled. Funny how appearances can be deceiving. James stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You're lying. This is some kind of joke." "Actually," I said, nodding toward the window where the realtor's sign now stood, "it's not. And tomorrow, when the rest of those signs go up, everyone will know exactly who owns this block." The pot roast was getting cold, but nobody was eating anymore. My family's perfect dinner had just been served with a side of reality, and they were having trouble swallowing it. The dining room had turned into a war zone of disbelief. James paced behind his chair while Rachel frantically searched Aurora Properties on her phone. Mom sat frozen, wine glass untouched, as Dad scrutinized the portfolio documents on my laptop. 212 properties, Dad muttered, scrolling through the list. Office buildings, retail spaces, residential blocks. He looked up sharply. That new downtown development on River Street. That's you. I nodded. The entire complex. 30 floors of luxury apartments, retail space, and a rooftop restaurant opening next month. But that's $100 million project. James exploded. There's no way, Dash. Actually, I cut in, pulling up another document. It's closer to 150. And it's already 90% pre-leased. Rachel's phone clattered onto the table. She's telling the truth, she whispered to James. Aurora Properties is everywhere. How did we not know? Because you never asked, I said simply. You were all too busy feeling superior to actually pay attention to what I was doing. Mom found her voice at last. But sweetheart, you live so immodestly. Your clothes, your car. Because I was investing everything, I explained. Every penny of profit went back into the business. While James was buying Porsches, I was buying buildings. With what money? James demanded. You couldn't have had that kind of capital. I smiled, remembering all the nights I'd spent analyzing market trends, all the weekends spent renovating that first building myself. Remember that little apartment building? I leveraged its success to buy 2 more. Those led to 5 more. Then 10. Each property generating revenue, each revenue stream funding the next purchase. I turned to James. While you were bragging about your 4 houses, I was quietly acquiring entire neighborhoods. Dad closed my laptop slowly. Why didn't you tell us? The question hung in the air, heavy with years of dismissal and condescension. Would you have believed me? I asked. 3 years ago at Thanksgiving, I tried to tell you about my first major commercial acquisition. You talked over me to praise James's new BMW. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. We didn't know. No, I agreed. You didn't want to know. It was easier to see me as the struggling daughter who couldn't afford a house than to actually look at what I was building. James had stopped pacing, his face a mix of shock and something else, respect maybe, or fear. The signs, he said suddenly. You said more are going up tomorrow? I nodded. Every house on this block except ours will have an Aurora Properties sign by morning. The neighborhood's being rezoned for mixed-use development. Mom gasped. You're going to tear down the houses? Not tear down, transform. Modern townhouses, boutique retail, green spaces. Property values will triple. I paused, meeting each of their eyes. Including yours if you stay. If we stay. Dad's voice cracked slightly. This house is the last piece I need for the development, I said quietly. I'm prepared to make an offer. Well above market value. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their comfortable family home, their familiar neighborhood, all of it was now under my control. James sank into his chair. All this time, while we were laughing at you, you were living above that building to save money, Mom whispered, realization dawning. Not because you had to, but because you chose to. Smart investing isn't about showing off wealth, I replied. It's about creating it. I stood up, gathering my laptop. The pot roast had gone cold, but I wasn't hungry anyway. Tomorrow would bring enough food for thought. I'll have my office send over the offer for the house, I said, heading for the door. Take some time to think about it. Sarah, Dad called after me. Wait. I turned back, seeing my family in a new light, not as the judges of my worth, but as people finally facing their own misconceptions. Yes. Your brother's lake house. He started. I smiled. Is part of a waterfront development Aurora Properties is acquiring next month. I opened the front door, pausing for effect. Funny how things work out, isn't it? The next morning, my office overlooking the city buzzed with activity as the Aurora Properties signs went up across my family's neighborhood. My phone had been lighting up since dawn, first with messages from neighbors, then local news outlets, and finally my family. Miss Wilson, my assistant Lisa poked her head in. Your brother is here. I looked up from the development plans spread across my desk. Send him in. James entered, but not with his usual swagger. He looked different in the morning light of my corner office. Smaller somehow, less certain. Nice place, he said, taking in the panoramic views. How long have you had this office? 3 years. You never asked where I worked. He winced, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, about that. I've been doing some thinking. Have a seat, I gestured to the chair across from my desk. I assume this is about the offer I sent over? 2 million over market value, he nodded. Mom and Dad are processing. I turned my computer screen to show him the development renderings. This is what the neighborhood will look like in 18 months. Modern townhouses, tree-lined walkways, cafes, small businesses. A community, not just a collection of houses. James leaned forward, studying the images. It's impressive. Really impressive. He paused. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. That first apartment building, the one we all laughed at you for living in, was that really the start? I pulled out an old photo from my desk drawer. See that? I pointed to the rundown building in the image. Broken windows, bad wiring, crumbling steps. Everyone said I was crazy to buy it. But I saw potential. And now, I showed him recent photos of the same building restored to its historic beauty, with a waiting list of tenants eager to live there. Now it's the cornerstone of Aurora Properties' philosophy. Find the potential others miss. Build value where others see decay. Create communities where others see just buildings. James was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about what you said last night. About showing off wealth versus creating it. He met my eyes. I bought that lake house to compete with my law partner's vacation home. But you built all this because you saw something bigger. It was never about the money, I said softly. It was about proving I could make something meaningful. Something that would last. Mom wants to know if they'll have to move, he said suddenly. If they sell. I pulled out another set of plans. See these units here? Premium townhouses with private gardens. I've held one in reserve. For them if they want it. At a family discount. James laughed, but it wasn't his old mocking laugh. A discount from their millionaire daughter. Who would have thought? Life's full of surprises. He stood up, walking to the window to look down at the city below. You know what the craziest part is? All those times we were feeling sorry for you, you probably could have bought my house 10 times over. 15 actually, I corrected with a small smile. But who's counting? He turned back to me, his expression serious. I was wrong about you, Sarah. We all were. And I'm sorry. The words hung in the air between us, bridging a gap that had grown wider with each dismissive comment, each condescending glance. You know, I said, I'm looking for someone to handle the legal side of Aurora's expansion. Someone who knows real estate law, who might want to be part of building something bigger than themselves. James's eyes widened slightly. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to see what real success looks like. If you're interested. He looked around my office again, seeing it with new eyes. The poor sister I pitied is offering me a job. Life has a way of teaching us humility, I said, standing up. Sometimes it just takes a few well-placed real estate signs to deliver the lesson. From my window we could see the Aurora Properties signs glinting in the morning sun, marking the beginning of a new chapter, not just for the neighborhood but for our family. So, I asked, are you ready to be part of something bigger than a lake house? James smiled, extending his hand. I think it's time I learned what real estate is actually about. I took his hand, sealing more than just a business deal. Sometimes the greatest achievements aren't the buildings we acquire, but the bridges we build, even with those who once looked down on us. Welcome to Aurora Properties, I said. Let's build something worth keeping.